Welcome the anointed ones. Dead men tell no tales, and that's exactly why they wanted you gone before this court date came back up. Let that sink in. Because what we're about to expose isn't just betrayal. It's a full-blown orchestrated disappearance plan that failed. Because you refused to die. Let's talk facts. Over 90% of psychological stress victims in long-term legal and familial battles report symptoms of PTSD, and more than half suffer in silence, isolated and gaslit, while their enemies count the days like vultures circling a corpse. Let me ask you something. Why did they file the paperwork, burn bridges, slander your name, and then suddenly go silent, almost like they were just waiting for a funeral? Not justice, not closure. Just a casket with your name on it, spiritual, mental, or literal. You see, chosen one, they never wanted the truth to come out in court. They wanted the court date to come and you not to show up, because you'd be in a body bag or a psych ward, or so far gone you couldn't spell your own name. But here you are, not only breathing but clear-eyed, healed, and walking in like a divine subpoena. And here's the funny part. They put all that effort into burying you, but forgot one small detail. You're not soil, you're seed. So buckle up, because this isn't just a comeback. This is a cosmic cross-examination, and someone's about to regret betting against a soul that was built to resurrect. Let's get into it. Number 1, they didn't file a case. They built a coffin. They didn't just open a case against you. They dug a grave. This wasn't about solving a dispute. It was a carefully timed attack with one goal. Make sure you didn't survive long enough to defend yourself. The paperwork, the dates, the accusations, it was all structured to drain you, break you, and bury you before the court ever got to hear your side. They didn't expect a fair fight. They expected silence, a breakdown, or a death certificate. The case wasn't about justice. It was a coffin in disguise. Think about it. Why was the court date pushed so far out? Why all the delays, the weird gaps in communication, the sudden coldness from people who once claimed they cared about you? They weren't stalling for time. They were buying it. Time for the rumors to grow, for the stress to eat you alive, for your name to rot in public before you ever got the chance to speak. They hoped you'd tap out. Mentally, emotionally, even physically. This was never about who was right. It was about who would still be standing. They banked on you not making it. They weaponized your trauma, your past, your triggers. They knew what you'd been through, and they bet everything on you relapsing or folding under pressure. They thought if they hit you hard enough and then disappeared, you'd just quietly fall apart and save them the trouble of facing the truth. But here you are, still breathing, still fighting. That's what they didn't calculate. They thought you'd crumble, but instead you studied the pattern. You got wiser, stronger, clearer. And now the very date they thought would mark your end is turning into their exposure. That courtroom isn't their stage anymore. It's yours. And now the case they built like a casket is cracking under the weight of your survival. Number 2, your mental collapse was part of their timeline. They planned your collapse like a schedule. This wasn't random. They expected every step of your breakdown to unfold with precision, silence you emotionally, isolate you socially, drain you financially, and crush you mentally. They didn't just expect it. They depended on it. The court date wasn't something they feared. It was the deadline by which they assumed you'd be too broken to respond. That was the goal, not just to win, but to make sure you wouldn't even show up. They timed everything with the hope that you'd unravel slowly but surely, that the stress would keep stacking until it felt impossible to breathe, that you'd lose your appetite, lose sleep, lose friends, lose yourself. And while you were unraveling, they played it cool. They stayed quiet, kept the paperwork moving, smiled in public, all while watching to see how long it would take for the pain to eat you alive. It wasn't about whether they had a case. They were betting on the damage. The kind of emotional sabotage that doesn't need a judge because it leaves you mentally wiped before you ever see a courtroom. They didn't want justice. They wanted you gone, out of the picture, off the map, erased from your own story. They believed that if they stayed calm and patient, your own mind would take care of the rest. That's the part that stings the most. They had more faith in your collapse than in their own lies. They thought they knew you. They thought the wounds you carried were still open. They thought you didn't have enough strength left to make it to the fight. But you messed up their math. You didn't collapse. You transformed. The pressure didn't crush you. It activated you. Now they're sitting in silence, watching you rise with clarity, strength, and a calm they didn't see coming. They were counting on a ghost. But now they have to face someone who walked through hell and came out looking like justice. Number 3. Your endurance shattered a multi-person investment. This wasn't just one person hoping you'd fall. There were multiple people behind the scenes who invested in your downfall like it was a group project. They weren't just watching. They were actively rooting for your destruction, putting energy, time, and in some cases even money into making sure you didn't make it past this legal storm. Some of them stood back to keep their hands clean while secretly feeding the fire. Others played their part openly, thinking the crowd would protect them. But either way, they all had a common goal: erase you before you could rise. Your downfall became a shared fantasy. They passed your name around like a secret currency. They told stories, exaggerated the truth, edited your life into a lie they could all agree on. The court date wasn't just about resolving a conflict. It became their finish line, the day they expected to celebrate your silence. They had meetings about you, whispered conversations, late-night messages. They planned what they would do once you were out of the picture, emotionally wrecked or completely written off. What they didn't count on was you surviving. That shook them more than anything. Your existence, breathing, healing, still standing, ruined the whole operation. It cost them credibility. It made their stories unravel. It made them look foolish. You weren't supposed to have the strength to keep going. And now that you've made it to the day they thought you'd never see, they're the ones panicking. Your survival forced them to face the fact that all their effort, energy, and investment went nowhere. You didn't break the way they needed you to. You didn't disappear. You didn't crack under the pressure. Now they're the ones hiding, avoiding eye contact, and scrambling to protect their names. Because when someone survives the thing that was supposed to destroy them, the attention shifts. And now, it's not you under the microscope. It's them. Number 4. They didn't count on the soul having a resurrection setting. They studied your weaknesses like scientists, broke down your past like analysts, and built their plan around what they thought you couldn't survive. They took notes on your trauma, remembered your breakdowns, paid attention to who left you, and assumed all of that meant you were permanently fragile. They thought your pain was a blueprint for your defeat. But what they didn't factor in was that the soul isn't made of nerves and memory. It's built from something deeper, something they can't measure, can't control, and definitely can't kill. They thought because your body was tired, your spirit would be too. They saw you grieving and thought you'd stay stuck there. They noticed you went quiet and assumed you were finished. What they missed completely is that some silences are sacred, spaces where souls reload. What they took for weakness was actually the start of a resurrection they couldn't see coming. Because when a chosen one dies internally, it's never permanent. It's a pause, a holy reconstruction. And when that soul gets back up, it doesn't just return, it evolves. That's what they failed to understand. You weren't surviving on willpower. You were connected to something infinite. Your strength didn't come from ego or pride. It came from the divine, from ancestors who refused to let you go, from a destiny that wouldn't let your story end like this. They thought you were out of options, but you had reserves they didn't know existed, divine rage that kept you standing, sacred memory that kept you grounded, and a fire in your bloodline that's been burning for generations. You didn't just recover, you came back upgraded, and that's terrifying to them. Because now they're not dealing with the same version of you they tried to bury. That version died. The one that showed up today? That's the resurrected one. The one that's not just alive but fully awakened. And they have no idea how to stop that. Number 5. The court date was their spiritual expiration. This court date wasn't just circled on a calendar. It was a spiritual deadline they thought would work in their favor. They set the clock not just for legal matters, but for spiritual warfare. Everything they sent your way, the curses, the evil eye, the gossip, the emotional sabotage, the manipulation, all of it had an expiration date. In their minds, it would all peak right before this day arrived, and by the time it came around, you'd be too broken, too ashamed, or too gone to show up. That wasn't a coincidence. That was strategy. They set their intentions like a spiritual trap, hoping you'd fold under the weight of delay and depression. They mixed lies with ritual, bitterness with belief. They made promises to themselves and to others that by this day you'd be finished. Not just silenced in court, silenced in spirit. But that deadline they created, it backfired. Because the more time passed, the more power shifted. What was meant to weaken you actually strengthened you. What was meant to isolate you forced you inward, where you found fire they didn't know you had. The longer the wait stretched, the more the illusion broke. Now the day is here, and instead of finding a dead spirit, they're met with someone fully alive, fully aware, and fully prepared. But here's the twist. This court date doesn't mark your downfall, it marks theirs. The very deadline they created has become a spiritual reversal. Everything they projected is now boomeranging back. The lies, the manipulation, the energy they conjured. It's returning to sender in real time. You're not on trial anymore. They are. And the irony? They can't appeal this spiritual judgment. There's no lawyer, no loophole, no ritual strong enough to reverse what's already begun. The court may be legal on paper, but in the spirit realm this was always their expiration. They tried to write your ending, and instead expose their own. Number 6. They never expected your silence to be calculated. They misread your silence like amateurs. They thought you were hiding, breaking down, or avoiding the pressure. But you weren't scared. You were sharpening. You didn't speak because you had nothing to say yet, not because you were powerless. While they ran their mouths and wrote their narratives, you were studying every move, every lie, every name that showed up where it didn't belong. Your silence wasn't fear, it was strategy. And now they're about to find out what happens when a calm storm finally speaks. They never considered that your quiet was calculated, that behind that stillness was someone watching patterns, saving receipts, remembering details no one thought you'd notice. You were tracking conversations, clocking betrayals, seeing who was aligned and who was just pretending. You weren't just surviving, you were building your case spiritually, emotionally, and legally. They thought they had time to spin the story how they wanted. They thought you'd stay frozen. But the silence they mistook for weakness was actually you downloading everything they thought you'd miss. And now, you're walking back into the scene like someone who studied the entire script in the dark and came back with the red pen. You're not reactive, you're precise, you're not flustered. You're composed, you're not throwing punches, you're delivering receipts with timestamps and evidence. What they thought was your delay was actually their exposure being prepped. They got comfortable because you didn't scream, because you didn't defend yourself publicly, because you let them talk. But now that the court date is back, so are you, and you're not who you were when this started. You're upgraded, focused, and lethal with facts. The version of you they thought they could silence now has the upper hand. And the worst part for them? You knew the whole time. You let them bury themselves with their own words, and now all you have to do is show up and press play. They never expected you to make it this far. Not mentally, not emotionally, and definitely not spiritually intact. The system, the people, the machinery behind the chaos, it all relied on one thing, that you'd forget. That the trauma would leave you disoriented, that the manipulation would cloud your memory, that the gaslighting would strip you of clarity. They weren't just counting on you being gone, they were banking on you being too fractured to ever put the pieces together. But you did. And now just being alive, aware, and whole is a threat to everything they built. You were supposed to be confused, numb, too scarred to recall the details. They expected you to show up either broken or not at all. They bet on psychological erosion. They figured the weight of the past would collapse you before the truth could ever surface. But here you are, thinking clearly, remembering vividly, and speaking with a calm that cuts deeper than rage. You didn't just walk out of the fire, you walked out carrying the proof. You don't need a dramatic story. You don't need to perform. You don't even have to over-explain. Your existence is the contradiction to every lie they told. You standing here, stable, whole, and sharper than ever, is a disruption to their illusion. You are the evidence that not only did something happen, but that someone survived it without becoming what they went through. That's not just rare. That's dangerous to the narrative. This is why they're uncomfortable, why they're twitchy, because you're not telling your story in pieces. You're walking in as the full archive. You're not confused about what happened. You're not questioning your sanity, and because you didn't disappear, neither can the truth. You being here, fully present, is proof that every attempt to erase you failed. And now they're not fighting allegations, they're fighting proof in human form. You. Number 7. Your existence is evidence. Your survival is nothing short of a legal anomaly. A rare, almost impossible event in a system that often functions by burying inconvenient truths under layers of forgetfulness and denial. They planned for you to disappear, to lose yourself in confusion, to become a broken echo of what you once were. But you defied those odds. You're not just here. You're standing with clarity, memory, and truth intact. That alone disrupts the entire system. In many legal battles, especially those entangled with deep trauma or spiritual warfare, the weakest link is often memory. When people forget, get confused, or lose faith in their own experiences, the system leans heavily on that vulnerability to dismiss their claims. But you didn't succumb to that. Your mind is healed. Your memories are sharp. You recall every moment, every detail, every injustice with a precision that no one can undermine. This makes you a threat, not just emotionally or spiritually, but legally. You're not a vague story or a collection of emotions. You are a walking, breathing record of truth. Your existence challenges their narrative, their lies, and their attempts to rewrite history. Every time you speak, every time you stand firm, you dismantle the walls they built to protect themselves. You don't just have a story to tell. You are the evidence they hope to erase. Your presence is a silent courtroom that speaks louder than any document, testimony, or lawyer's argument. They rely on confusion, doubt, and the hope that you'll lose yourself along the way. But your clarity is a beacon in that murky system. It's a reminder that no matter how many tactics they deploy, legal maneuvering, intimidation, or spiritual attacks, you are unshakable. Your healed mind is their Achilles heel. This means your survival is more than a personal victory. It's a symbol that justice can prevail even in the most hostile environments. You represent the power of truth, memory, and resilience, standing firm against forces designed to silence and erase. In every sense, your very existence is the evidence, and it's one they cannot deny. Number 8. Their karma is stacked and waiting for a public address. This court date is not a finish line, it's ignition. What's about to unfold isn't just a legal matter, it's spiritual detonation. This isn't one person's issue. It's a chain of hidden dirt that's been swept under too many rugs for too long. And now the rug's being pulled back, and the stench is about to flood every room these people ever felt safe in. Their karma isn't just coming. It's been waiting for this moment, patiently, calculated, timed like a fuse about to blow. They thought if they pushed the right paperwork, smeared you enough, and played the victim louder than you could speak, they'd walk away clean. But the universe doesn't forget. This court date, it's not even about them versus you anymore. It's them versus everything they buried. Their lies, their manipulation, their deals done in the dark. All of it has been quietly stacking, waiting for the exact moment they'd have to face it publicly. And that moment has a name. It's this case. Because what they didn't expect is that your voice would become the trigger. The words they tried to silence will now echo through halls they can't control. Your truth isn't just powerful, it's radioactive. The kind of truth that doesn't just affect one courtroom, but ripples into families, workplaces, churches, community circles, and group chats that swore to never say your name. The kind of truth that unlocks more than justice, it unlocks consequences. This isn't just about judgment, it's about collapse. And the terrifying part for them is knowing that once this door opens, it won't close neatly. One exposure leads to another. Skeletons they locked away are about to start banging on the walls in full daylight. Reputations built on lies will shatter. And all because you spoke. You, the one they tried to erase. You, the one they underestimated. Your voice is the karmic switch that flips the whole system. And once it flips, nothing goes back to how it was. Number 9. They used legal paperwork like witchcraft. They didn't just file paperwork. They performed rituals disguised as legal motions. Every form, every clause, every deadline was a thread woven into a spell meant to trap you, confuse you, and bury you under a mountain of confusion. This wasn't about fairness or truth. It was about weaponizing bureaucracy, turning the cold machinery of the law into a battleground for spiritual warfare. They understood the power hidden in legal language, the way words can bind, restrict, and silence if you don't know how to fight back. They played the game knowing most people don't see this side of the law. They banked on your exhaustion, your overwhelm, your lack of resources. They thought if they drowned you in paperwork, if they hid their intentions behind legal jargon, they'd win without even needing to prove a thing. This was more than strategy. It was calculated aggression disguised as procedure. Their weapon wasn't just the law itself, but the fear and confusion it creates in the people it targets. But what they didn't expect was that you weren't just a passive victim of their schemes. You've learned the language, you've seen the patterns, you've decoded the spells they cast through these documents. You survived a war most don't even realize exists, one fought not just in courtrooms, but in the unseen spiritual battlefield behind every signature and filing. And now, your clarity and insight are armor no amount of twisted paperwork can pierce. They thought they could manipulate you through layers of legal trickery, but you're immune. You don't just respond, you dismantle. Every form they use as a weapon only sharpens your focus. Every motion they file only fuels your determination. They tried to trap your spirit in legal chains, but you broke free. And now their so-called witchcraft has nothing left to cast because you hold the true power. Understanding, resilience, and unshakable clarity. Number 10. Your delay wasn't denial. It was divine interruption. The wait, the endless pushing back of dates, the silence when you expected answers, felt like the world was against you. It felt like betrayal, like the universe forgot you. But that delay? It wasn't denial, it wasn't weakness. It was a divine interruption, a reset button you didn't ask for but desperately needed. Because if this case had moved forward on their timeline, you wouldn't have been ready. You wouldn't have been armed with the clarity, the strength, or the strategy you have now. Sometimes life's delays feel like punishment, but they're often the most powerful preparation disguised as frustration. The time you were given, though it felt unfair, was actually a gift. It gave you space to heal, to sharpen your mind, and to gather facts and allies. It allowed your spirit to align with the bigger purpose behind all this chaos. The very pause they thought would break you is what made you dangerous. Now, their schedule, once a weapon meant to control and confuse you, has become your stage. The day they expected you to be defeated is the day you stand fully equipped. They thought they owned the timeline. But timelines are just illusions until you decide what to do with them. You took that forced break and turned it into a power move. So when the court date finally arrives, it won't be just another date on a calendar. It will be the moment your preparation meets your purpose. The moment their expectations shatter against your readiness. The moment your divine timing overrides their plans. You didn't just survive the delay. You used it to become a force they never saw coming. And now all eyes are on you, because the story isn't just continuing, it's about to explode. Number 11. Your survival nullified the curse they paid for. They invested in dark intentions, hired others to put spells on you, to make your light flicker and fade. They believed that with enough money and malice, they could silence you forever, make you sick, broken, invisible. They thought your story would end quietly, buried beneath whispers and spiritual sabotage. But here you are, alive and breathing, a living rebuke to every curse they paid for. Their attempts didn't just fail. They bounced back, unpaid debts accumulating in the invisible ledger of the universe. Their curses were contracts written in fear, but your survival shattered every clause. You were supposed to flatline in your sleep, to crumble under pressure, to vanish without a trace. But you didn't. You broke every expectation, every prediction, every plan they made in the shadows. Your existence now stands as a cosmic invoice, proof that their spiritual investment was a total loss. Somewhere in a realm they can't touch, their spiritual accounts are running dry, bankrupt because you refused to die. You didn't just survive their dark magic, you exposed it. Each day you remained standing chips away at the power they thought they bought. Your clarity, your strength, your presence are all reminders that money can't buy victory over a soul that's determined to live. Their spells were meant to erase you, but instead they amplified your resilience. And that's the bitterest part for them. Their investment turned into spiritual debt, and the universe keeps sending the bill. Your survival is a statement louder than any court ruling, a truth they can't silence. Because no matter what they paid, no matter how hard they tried, you're still here, still whole, still undefeated, and that makes them bankrupt in ways they'll never understand. Number 12. You are now a legal and spiritual precedent. Your survival isn't just a personal victory, it's a seismic shift that will ripple far beyond your own story. When you stood up and refused to be erased, you didn't just fight for yourself. You rewrote the rules for everyone who comes after. In the tangled mess where the legal system meets spiritual warfare, you became the blueprint, the precedent. Your case is no longer just a file on a judge's desk. It's a beacon, a reference point showing how divine strength can outmaneuver cold, calculated systems designed to break people. You're now an archetype, the example others will look to when they face their own battles against weaponized institutions. Lawyers will study your resilience. Communities will find hope in your story, and those caught in the same fight will use your journey as proof that survival and victory are possible. You're a living manual for how to take what was meant to destroy and turn it into liberation. What you're doing here isn't just winning a case. It's opening a path for the sacred to intersect with the secular in a way that commands respect and demands change. The spiritual and legal systems have long been at odds, often leaving the divine warriors caught in the crossfire. But you're changing that narrative. Your fight is creating a new standard, a precedent that declares, weaponized systems will not silence the chosen. They will not win. This court date isn't just a moment in time, it's the foundation of something much bigger. You're not just surviving, you're pioneering a legacy. And when the story of how you turned the impossible into victory spreads, it will empower countless others to rise, knowing that their own struggles are part of a larger, unstoppable movement toward justice and truth. Number 13. The courtroom is no longer their arena. They brought this case thinking the courtroom would be their hunting ground, a place where they could intimidate you into silence, where your spirit would crack under pressure. They imagined you'd walk in shattered, scared, and submissive. But that script didn't unfold the way they planned. Instead, you stepped in owning every inch of that room like it was yours to command. Your presence shifted the energy instantly. Your testimony isn't just words, it's prophecy. It carries the weight of truth that can't be ignored or twisted. The judge won't just hear your voice, they'll feel the undeniable force behind it. The lawyers, poised to attack, will suddenly realize the power they're up against is not the same as before. The air in the courtroom will change, charged, electric, heavy with the knowledge that the roles have reversed. This isn't a game to you anymore, it's a reckoning. The predator, the one who thought they had all the control, has become the defendant in real time. They're exposed, vulnerable, and forced to face consequences they never expected to encounter in a space they once controlled. Your calm confidence dismantles their facade piece by piece. The courtroom, once their arena, is now your stage, and everyone present will know it. They will witness a transformation not just of a case, but of power itself. The hunters have been turned into the hunted, and the silence they feared is replaced by your undeniable, unstoppable voice. This is your moment, and nothing in that room can stop what's already been set in motion. Number 14. They wanted you dead because dead men can't testify. They wanted you dead because a dead person can't speak up, can't testify, can't shatter their lies. This whole setup wasn't about whether you were guilty or innocent. It was about whether you could be silenced forever. You were dangerous to them, not because of anything you did, but because of everything you saw, everything you understood. Your knowledge was a threat they couldn't control, so their plan was to make sure you never got the chance to use it. But you didn't die. You didn't disappear into the shadows where they hoped you'd vanish. You escaped their reach, and more importantly, you stayed awake. You kept your mind sharp, your memory intact, and your spirit alive. That's what truly unsettles them, the fact that you are still here, breathing, thinking, and ready to speak the truth. Because when you're alive, your voice is a weapon stronger than any court document or legal maneuver. They wanted to erase you, hoping that if you were gone, the secrets you carry would vanish too. But life has other plans. Your survival means their carefully constructed web of lies is at risk of unraveling. Every day you remain alive, aware, and vocal is another day they lose control. The fact that you can testify, share your truth, and stand in the light terrifies them more than anything else. You're dangerous because knowledge is power, and they wanted to keep you powerless. But here you are, alive, unbroken, and ready to expose what they thought was safely hidden. Your existence alone is the loudest testimony, and that is what makes you the biggest threat to their narrative. They expected you to be gone, out of sight, out of mind, before this day ever arrived. They counted on fear, silence, and disappearance as the end game. But what they failed to realize is that you are not just flesh and bone. You are spirit, resilience, and an unstoppable force woven from every trial you've endured. Your survival isn't just a personal triumph. It's a declaration that no amount of darkness, manipulation, or fear can erase the truth. This court date isn't simply about legal battles or judgments. It's about the unveiling of power they never understood you possessed. You didn't just endure their attacks. You transformed them into fuel. Every delay, every curse, every whisper meant to break you only sharpened your resolve. You arrived not broken, but stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than ever. The very systems they used as weapons have become the stage for your greatest victory. And now, as you stand ready to speak your truth, you carry with you the weight of justice, clarity, and a spiritual authority that cannot be ignored. This moment marks more than a courtroom confrontation. It's a seismic shift. It signals to anyone who's been silenced, underestimated, or dismissed that survival is a beginning, not an end. Your presence here rewrites the narrative on what it means to be truly victorious. It shows that those who try to bury truth underestimate the power of a soul that refuses to die. You are the living proof that light breaks through even the darkest of nights. So when that gavel falls, it won't just seal a legal outcome, it will echo a profound truth. The chosen one isn't just surviving. They are rising, speaking, and transforming the very system that tried to crush them. This court date is your reckoning, your moment, and your legacy. And remember, what they thought would be your end is really only the beginning of a power they never saw coming. If this message resonated with you, and you want to stay connected to powerful stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video. It helps more people see this truth. Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters here, and if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Together, we're building a community that refuses to be silenced. Thank you for being part of this journey. God bless you.